When Elena Voss kissed Chicago's most dangerous crime lord in front of 300 people, she wasn't thinking about consequences. She was thinking about survival. Her ex-boyfriend Derek had been stalking her for months, his threats getting darker, his grip tightening. So she did the only thing that made sense in that moment of pure desperation. She walked across that ballroom floor and pressed her lips against a man who could destroy her just as easily as he could save her. What happened next changed everything. If you want to know how a single kiss can rewrite your entire life, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Sinclair Hotel ballroom smelled like money and lies. Elena stood near the marble column, champagne flute gripped too tight in her hand, watching the city's elite pretend they gave a damn about children's literacy. The dress she wore, midnight blue, borrowed from her roommate Jessa, fit well enough to pass. The makeup covering the yellowing bruise on her left cheekbone was expertly applied. Nobody here knew the girl holding the champagne glass was barely making rent, that her wrist still ached from where it had been twisted 3 days ago, that she'd come to this charity gala on a comp ticket she'd designed the graphics for. Nobody knew anything real about her. That was the point. "You look lost," the voice came from her right. Elena didn't turn. She'd learned not to engage with strange men at events like these. They either wanted something or they wanted to feel important by talking to someone who looked like they didn't belong. "I'm fine," she said, "just people watching." Dangerous hobby in a room like this. This time she glanced over. The woman speaking was older, maybe 60, wearing emeralds that probably cost more than Elena's entire year of student loans. Her smile was knowing. "Most people here," the woman continued, "they're watching too, looking for weaknesses, opportunities. You'd be surprised how much blood gets spilled in ballrooms." "I'll keep that in mind." The woman's smile widened. "You're the designer, aren't you? The one who did the invitations. Beautiful work, very clean." Elena blinked. "Thank you. I'm Margaret Sinclair. This is my husband's hotel." "Oh, I'm Elena. Elena Voss." "I know." Margaret's eyes moved past her, scanning the crowd. "Word of advice, dear. If you're going to hide, don't do it near the exits. Makes you look like you're planning to run." Before Elena could respond, Margaret drifted away into the crowd, leaving behind the faint scent of Chanel and the uncomfortable feeling that she'd been read like a children's book. Elena took a sip of champagne. It was good, too good. Everything here was too good, too polished, too far removed from the life she actually lived. She shouldn't have come. The invitation had been a courtesy, a nice gesture from the nonprofit coordinator who'd hired her. Elena had designed their entire campaign, logos, mailers, social media graphics, for barely above cost because she believed in the cause. She didn't belong at the gala itself, but Jessa had insisted. "You need to network," she'd said, pinning Elena's hair up in her tiny bathroom. "You need to be seen. How else are you going to get real clients?" Real clients. As if Elena's life had room for ambition right now. As if she wasn't spending every spare moment looking over her shoulder, checking locks, avoiding certain streets. As if Derek Hale wasn't somewhere in this very room. She'd seen him 20 minutes ago, near the bar. He'd seen her too. Their eyes had met across the crowd, and his expression had shifted into something possessive and ugly. He'd started moving in her direction, but someone had intercepted him. Some business contact, probably. Derek was good at playing the successful young executive. Nobody at his firm knew what he was like when the doors closed. Elena's phone buzzed in her clutch. She pulled it out, already knowing what she'd find. "You look beautiful tonight, like you're mine." Her stomach twisted. She deleted the text without responding, but 3 more came in rapid succession. "That dress is new. Who bought it for you?" "Don't ignore me, Elena. We need to talk." "Outside. 5 minutes." Her hands were shaking now. She put the phone away and drained the rest of her champagne. The ballroom suddenly felt too small, too hot. All these people in their expensive clothes, their practiced smiles, and not one of them would help her if Derek decided tonight was the night he stopped making threats and started making good on them. The restraining order was a joke. He'd violated it 4 times. The police had done nothing. His family had money, connections. Elena had a public defender who looked about 12 years old and a stack of medical bills from the last time Derek had lost his temper. She was alone. The realization hit her with fresh force. even though it wasn't new. She'd been alone since her parents died in the car accident 2 years ago, since her small support system had crumbled, since she'd made the mistake of thinking Derek's attention was love instead of control. "Elena." She went rigid, his voice right behind her. "We're not doing this here," she said without turning around. "Yes, we are." Derek's hand closed around her elbow. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. To anyone watching, it probably looked almost affectionate. "You've been avoiding my calls. There's a reason for that. I miss you. Let go of me. Baby, come on, don't be like this." His grip tightened fractionally. "I know I screwed up. I know I need to be better. But you can't just shut me out. We had something real." Elena tried to pull away. His fingers dug in harder. "Derek, I'm serious. Let go or I'll make a scene." He laughed. Actually laughed. "No, you won't. You hate scenes. You hate conflict. That's always been your problem, Elena. You're too soft." Something inside her snapped. Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was the weeks of fear finally reaching critical mass. Maybe it was just exhaustion. She yanked her arm free, harder than she'd intended, and her champagne flute slipped from her other hand. It shattered on the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire ballroom. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Derek's expression shifted, his public face sliding into place, concerned, slightly embarrassed. The picture of a man dealing with a clumsy date. "Are you okay?" he asked, loud enough for people nearby to hear. His hand reached for her again. "You seem a little unsteady." And that's when Elena saw him, across the room, standing with a small group of men in suits that probably cost more than her car. He was older than most people here, mid to late 40s, she guessed. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair touched with gray at the temples. His face was the kind that didn't need to try for authority. It just had it, built into the architecture of his bones. But that wasn't what made Elena's breath catch. It was the way everyone around him had positioned themselves, slightly turned toward him, attentive, like planets orbiting a sun. And the way people walking past gave his group a wide berth, their trajectories subtly altered by his presence. This was someone important, someone powerful, someone dangerous. Their eyes met across the ballroom. His were dark, unreadable, the kind of eyes that had seen things Elena couldn't imagine. And in that moment, with Derek's hand reaching for her again and panic rising in her throat, Elena Voss made the most reckless decision of her life. She walked toward the stranger. The crowd seemed to part for her. Or maybe she was just pushing through without caring anymore. She was vaguely aware of Derek calling her name, confusion in his voice. Aware of people staring, but all of that faded into background noise. The stranger watched her approach. He didn't move, didn't smile, just watched with those dark, unreadable eyes. Elena stopped in front of him. She was distantly aware that the men he'd been talking to had gone quiet, that the air around them felt different, charged with something she couldn't name. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I need your help." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you?" It wasn't quite a question. His voice was low, quiet, the kind of voice that didn't need volume to carry weight. "My ex-boyfriend won't leave me alone." The words tumbled out. "He's been following me, threatening me. The police won't do anything. I don't know what else to do. And you think I can help with that?" "I think—" Elena hesitated. What did she think? She didn't know this man, didn't know anything about him except that he radiated the kind of power that made people step carefully. "I think he'll listen to you in a way he won't listen to me." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or curiosity. "Where is he?" Elena glanced back. Derek was moving through the crowd toward them, his face tight with anger barely concealed. "There," she said. The stranger followed her gaze. His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. The men around him tensed slightly, their bodies unconsciously moving into protective positions. "Elena!" Derek's voice cut through the low murmur of conversation. He was close now, too close. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She turned back to the stranger. Their eyes met again, and in that moment, Elena made her second reckless decision. She kissed him. It wasn't tentative, it wasn't soft. She stepped into his space, rose onto her toes, and pressed her mouth to his with all the desperate conviction of a drowning woman grabbing for a lifeline. For a split second, the world stopped. Then his hand came up to the back of her neck, and he kissed her back. It wasn't gentle. His mouth was firm, commanding, and the hand on her neck held her exactly where he wanted her. The kiss lasted maybe 3 seconds, long enough to make a statement, long enough for everyone watching to understand exactly what they were seeing. When he pulled back, Elena's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. "Well," he said quietly, his thumb brushing the side of her neck. "That's one way to ask." Derek's voice exploded behind them. "What the fuck, Elena?" The stranger's eyes shifted to Derek. He didn't let go of Elena. "You must be the ex-boyfriend. Who the hell are you? Someone you don't want to irritate." His tone was conversational, almost bored. "Walk away." Derek laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Are you serious? You think you can just—" "I'm not asking." The stranger's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Walk away or you'll be carried away. Your choice." The men around him shifted. Nothing obvious, just a subtle redistribution of weight, the kind of movement that suggested preparation. Derek's face went red. "You can't threaten me. Do you know who my father is?" "No." The stranger paused. "Do you know who I am?" Something in his voice made Derek hesitate. His eyes darted to the men flanking them, then back to the stranger's face. Elena watched the calculation happening in real time. Derek was an asshole, but he wasn't stupid. Whatever he saw in the stranger's expression made him reconsider. "This isn't over," Derek said, but he was already backing up. "Elena, we're going to talk about this." "No," the stranger said. "You're not." Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. His jaw worked. Then he turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd with jerky, angry movements. Elena realized she was holding her breath. She let it out slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. The stranger's hand was still on the back of her neck. His thumb moved against her skin, a small, deliberate stroke that sent shivers down her spine. "What's your name?" "Elena. Elena Voss." "Elena." He said it like he was tasting it. "I'm Lucien Moretti." The name didn't mean anything to her, but the way the nearest man flinched when he said it meant something. "Thank you," she said again, because she didn't know what else to say. "You kissed me in front of 300 people, Lucien said. His voice was still quiet, but there was something almost amused in it now. "Without asking my name. Without knowing who I was. That's either very brave or very stupid." "Probably stupid." "Probably." His hand dropped from her neck, but he didn't step back. "Did he hurt you?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Your ex. Did he hurt you?" It still wasn't quite a question. Elena felt something twist in her chest. "That's not... It's complicated. It's a yes or no question." "Yes." The word came out small. "Yes, he hurt me." Lucian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went very cold. "Come with me," he said. "What? You came here asking for help. I'm offering it, but not here." He gestured to the ballroom around them. "Too many ears." Elena's instincts were screaming at her. Every self-preservation impulse she had left was telling her to say no, to walk away, to thank him politely and disappear into the crowd. But she looked across the room and saw Derek near the bar, watching them. His phone was out. His face was murderous. "Okay," Elena said. Lucien held out his arm. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. They walked through the ballroom like that, her hand resting on his forearm, his pace measured to match hers. The crowd parted for them without anyone appearing to move deliberately. It was like watching water flow around a stone. One of the men who'd been standing with Lucien fell into step behind them. He was younger, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and calculating eyes. He didn't look at Elena, but she had the distinct impression he was aware of everything about her. They moved through a side door, down a carpeted hallway. The sounds of the gala faded behind them. Lucien led her to an elevator with no visible call button. He pressed his palm against a panel, and the doors opened immediately. The elevator was all dark wood and brass. There were no floor buttons inside, just another palm panel. Elena's pulse kicked up again. Where are we going? Somewhere private. Lucien pressed his palm to the panel. The elevator began to rise. Where we can talk without being interrupted. The man who'd followed them stepped into the elevator last. The doors closed. Elena watched the floor numbers climb. They passed the ballroom level. Kept going. The hotel was 12 stories. They passed the 12th floor. There's a 13th floor? She asked. For certain guests, Lucien said. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a hallway that looked nothing like the rest of the hotel. No gilded mirrors or expensive artwork. Just clean lines, dark walls, and security cameras visible in the corners. They walked to a door at the end of the hall. Lucien opened it and gestured for her to enter. Elena stepped inside and stopped. The space beyond wasn't a hotel room. It was an apartment. Massive, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. The furniture was expensive but understated. Everything was in shades of gray and black and deep blue. Have a seat, Lucien said, closing the door behind them. The other man remained in the hallway. Elena sat on the edge of a leather sofa. Her hands were shaking again. Now that the adrenaline was fading, the reality of what she'd just done was sinking in. She'd kissed a complete stranger in front of hundreds of people, including Derek. She'd gone with that stranger to a private apartment on a secret floor of a hotel. She had no idea who Lucien Moretti actually was. You're panicking, Lucien observed. He moved to a bar cart and poured something amber into 2 glasses. Understandable, but unnecessary. I don't even know you. No. He crossed the room and handed her one of the glasses. But you trusted me enough to ask for help, and I'm curious enough to give it. Elena looked down at the glass. Whiskey, probably. Or bourbon. She didn't drink hard liquor. She took a sip anyway. It burned, but in a way that steadied her. Tell me about Derek Hale, Lucien said. He sat in the chair across from her, relaxed and patient, like they had all the time in the world. Why? Because I need to know what I'm dealing with. You don't have to deal with anything. You already scared him off. For tonight, Lucien's voice was matter-of-fact. Men like him don't take embarrassment well. He'll regroup, come back angrier. Elena knew he was right. She took another sip of whiskey. We dated for 8 months, she said. It was good at first. He was charming, attentive. Then it started changing, little things. He'd get upset if I didn't text back fast enough. He wanted to know where I was all the time, who I was with. Controlling. Yeah. Elena stared into her glass. I should have seen it earlier, but I kept making excuses. He was stressed at work. He was just being protective. I told myself it was because he cared. When did it get physical? The question was direct, clinical, but not unkind. 3 months ago, we had an argument about something stupid. I can't even remember what. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to leave bruises. He apologized right away, said it would never happen again. But it did. 2 weeks later. Then again, each time it got worse. She met Lucien's eyes. The last time was bad. I ended up in the ER. That's when I finally left. And the restraining order? Doesn't matter. He's violated it 4 times. The cops tell me there's nothing they can do unless he actually assaults me again. Her laugh was bitter. So I just have to wait until he puts me in the hospital. Then maybe they'll care. Lucien was quiet for a long moment. His expression hadn't changed, but something in the air around him felt colder. His father is Richard Hale, he said. Hale Industries. Manufacturing and distribution. Worth about $200 million. Elena blinked. How do you... I make it my business to know people. He took a sip of his own drink. Richard Hale has connections in the Chicago PD City Council. Judges. That's why your restraining order is worthless. Derek has a safety net. Great, so I'm screwed. No. Lucien set his glass down. You came to me. That changes things. I don't understand. Derek's safety net works because people are afraid of his father's money and connections. But there are things money can't buy, like discretion when you've made the wrong enemy. The way he said it made Elena's skin prickle. Who are you? Lucien smiled. It wasn't a warm expression. I'm someone Derek should have walked away from when he had the chance. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I'm giving tonight. He leaned forward slightly. Here's what's going to happen, Elena. You're going to stay here, in this apartment, where Derek can't find you. I can't just... I have a job, my apartment, my roommate. Your job is freelance. You can work from anywhere. Your roommate will be fine. And your apartment is the first place Derek will look when he realizes you're serious about cutting him off. How do you know I freelance? Lucian's smile widened fractionally. I told you, I make it my business to know people. Elena's head was spinning. This is insane. I can't just move into a stranger's apartment. You can, and you will, because the alternative is waiting for Derek to escalate. And men like him always escalate. He was right. Elena knew he was right, but this was happening too fast. She'd come to the gala thinking she'd network, maybe get a new client contact. Now she was sitting in a secret apartment with a man who seemed to know everything about her and everyone else in Chicago. What do you want? She asked. People don't just help for no reason. What's in this for you? Lucian regarded her for a long moment. You kissed me, he said finally. In front of a room full of people who will be talking about it by morning. That makes you mine, as far as anyone watching is concerned. I'm not anybody's. Good. Hold on to that. He stood. But perception matters. Derek saw you choose me over him. That's a public humiliation. If I don't follow through, I look weak, and I don't tolerate looking weak. So I'm what? A statement? You're a woman who asked for protection. I'm giving it to you. Everything else is secondary. He moved toward a hallway leading off the main room. Come on, I'll show you where you'll sleep. Elena didn't move. And if I say no? If I just leave? Lucian stopped, looked back at her. Then Derek will be waiting for you in the parking garage, he said. And I'll go back to my evening. Your choice. Wasn't really a choice at all. Elena stood and followed him down the hallway. The bedroom was larger than her entire apartment. Dark walls, a massive bed with expensive linens, another wall of windows overlooking the city. The bathroom's through there, Lucian said, gesturing. You'll find everything you need, toiletries, clothes in various sizes in the closet. Help yourself. You just keep women's clothes on hand? I keep options available for guests. Sometimes meetings run long. People need to change. He moved back toward the door. I'll have someone bring your things from your apartment tomorrow. Give me your address and your roommate's number. I'll make sure she knows you're safe. Just like that. Just like that. He paused in the doorway. Get some rest, Elena. We'll talk more in the morning. Wait. She didn't know what she wanted to ask. There were too many questions. Why are you doing this? Lucian was quiet for a moment. Then, you walked across a ballroom and kissed a stranger because you were desperate enough to risk anything. That takes courage most people don't have. I respect courage. That wasn't courage. That was panic. Sometimes they're the same thing. He pulled the door closed behind him. Good night, Elena. She stood alone in the expensive bedroom, heart still racing, and wondered what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. Through the windows, Chicago glittered like broken glass. Elena pulled out her phone. 17 missed calls from Derek. 42 text messages. She didn't read them. She blocked his number, then turned her phone off completely. Her hands were still shaking. She moved to the window and pressed her palm against the cold glass. 13 stories below, the city moved and breathed. Cars crawling through streets, people living their lives. None of them knew that Elena Voss had just traded one dangerous man for another. Except Lucian didn't feel dangerous in the same way Derek did. Derek's danger was personal, intimate, born from jealousy and control. Lucien's danger was something else entirely. Something colder, more absolute. But he'd offered protection when no one else would. And right now, that was enough. Elena turned away from the window. She found the bathroom, marble and chrome, bigger than some bedrooms. Found a bathrobe hanging on the back of the door. She stripped off the borrowed dress, washed her face, and let the hot water run over her hands until they finally stopped shaking. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The bruise on her cheekbone was fully visible now. There were older marks, too, fading yellow and green along her collarbone, evidence of Derek's love written on her skin. Never again, she thought. Whatever happens next, he never touches me again. She went back into the bedroom and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets were soft, expensive. the kind of luxury she'd never experienced. Sleep shouldn't have come easily, but exhaustion was a weight she couldn't fight anymore. Elena closed her eyes and fell into darkness, and for the first time in months, she didn't dream about Derek's hands around her throat. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a confused moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned in a rush. The gala, the kiss. Lucien Moretti. She sat up and found a note on the nightstand, written in precise handwriting, "Coffee in the kitchen. Make yourself at home. We'll talk when you're ready. LL." Elena got out of bed and padded barefoot down the hallway. The apartment looked different in daylight. Still expensive, still intimidating, but somehow less ominous. The living room was empty. She found the kitchen, all stainless steel and black granite, and discovered a coffee maker already full and hot. She poured herself a cup and stood at the counter, trying to process her new reality. She was living in a stranger's apartment, a stranger who had enough power to make Derek Hale back down with a handful of words. A stranger who knew things about her he shouldn't know. A stranger she'd kissed in front of half of Chicago's elite. The front door opened. Elena jumped, coffee sloshing over the rim of her cup. Lucien entered, dressed differently than last night. Dark jeans, a black sweater. He looked less formal, but no less commanding. "Good morning," he said. "You slept late." Elena glanced at the clock on the stove. 10:47 a.m. "I usually work late." "Not anymore." He moved to the coffee maker and poured his own cup. "Your new schedule is more flexible." "My new schedule?" "You're under my protection now. That comes with adjustments." He leaned against the counter, studying her. "How do you feel?" "Confused, scared, grateful. Take your pick." All reasonable responses. He took a sip of coffee. "I had your things brought over from your apartment. They're in the second bedroom. Your roommate sends her regards." "You talked to Jessa?" "One of my people did. Explained that you're staying with a friend for a while." She was concerned but understood. Elena wondered what exactly had been said to make Jessa understand. "And Derek?" "Quiet so far, but he will make a move. They always do." Lucien's expression was neutral. "When he does, I'll handle it." "How?" "You don't need to worry about the details." "I think I do. This is my life. And I'm protecting it. That requires trust, Elena. Can you do that?" The question hung between them. Elena thought about the restraining order that hadn't protected her, the police who hadn't helped, the system that had failed her at every turn. Then she thought about Derek's face last night, when Lucien had told him to walk away, the fear that had crept into his expression. "I don't have much choice," she said. "There's always a choice. You could leave right now. I wouldn't stop you." "And then what? Go back to my apartment and wait for Derek to show up?" "Probably." Lucien's voice was matter-of-fact. "He knows where you live. He knows your schedule. You'd have maybe a day before he made his move." Elena set her coffee cup down. Her hands were steady now. "So this is the better option, living here, with you. It's the safer option. Whether it's better depends on your perspective." "What does that mean?" Lucien pushed away from the counter. "It means I'm not a good man, Elena. I'm effective, I'm powerful, but I'm not good. And being under my protection comes with complications you may not be prepared for." "Like what?" "Like the fact that people will make assumptions about us, about why you're here, about what you are to me." Heat crept into Elena's face. This isn't... "I know, but they won't care about the truth. They'll care about the story, and the story they'll tell is that you're mine." He paused. "That has consequences. Benefits too, but consequences." Elena's mind was racing. "What kind of consequences?" "The kind where Derek becomes very motivated to hurt you, because hurting you hurts me, or at least that's what he'll believe." Lucien's voice was calm, clinical. "The kind where other people in my world start paying attention to you, watching you, using you as leverage." Jesus Christ! Elena sat down hard on one of the kitchen stools. "This is insane. I just wanted him to leave me alone. And he will. But nothing is free." Lucien moved closer, his voice gentling slightly. "I'm giving you the reality, Elena. You deserve that much. This protection isn't simple. It's effective, but it's not simple." She looked up at him. In the morning light, he looked tired. There were lines around his eyes she hadn't noticed last night, silver threads in his dark hair. He wasn't young. He wasn't soft. He was exactly what he claimed to be, powerful and dangerous and not good. But he was honest. And right now, honesty felt like the most valuable thing anyone had offered her in months. "Okay," Elena said. "Then tell me the rest. All of it. Who you really are. What this actually costs." Lucian smiled. It was a small, almost sad expression. "Have you ever heard the name Moretti before last night?" "No." "Good. That means I'm doing my job right." He moved to the windows, looking out over the city. "My family has been in Chicago for 3 generations. We've built something here. An organization. Profitable. Influential. Not always legal." Elena's stomach dropped. I prefer to think of it as private security and specialized logistics. But yes, if you want the ugly word, I run a criminal enterprise." He didn't look at her. "Mostly legitimate now. I've been moving things in that direction for years. But the foundation was built on less savory work. You're a mobster. I'm a businessman who understands that power comes in many forms. Some of them involve violence. Most of them involve money and leverage." Finally, he turned to face her. "Does that change things?" Elena didn't know what to say. She should be horrified. She should run. But Derek had taught her something about monsters. They didn't always look like monsters. Sometimes they looked like successful young executives with nice smiles and family money. Sometimes they waited until you loved them before they showed their teeth. Lucian wasn't pretending. He was telling her exactly what he was. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't know what to do with this." "That's fair." He crossed back to her. "Here's what I can promise you. While you're under my protection, Derek can't touch you. No one can. You'll be safe in a way the law couldn't make you safe. And in exchange, you let people think you're mine. You stay here, where I can control the variables. You trust me to handle Derek when he makes his move." Lucian's voice was steady. "And you accept that the man protecting you is not a hero. I'm just the lesser of 2 evils." Elena thought about the bruises Derek had left, the fear that had become her constant companion, the sleepless nights and panic attacks, and the growing certainty that eventually he would kill her. "Lesser evil is still better than the alternative," she said. Lucien's expression softened fractionally. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes. For now, until I figure out what comes next." "Fair enough." He held out his hand. "Then we have an agreement." Elena looked at his hand, strong, scarred across the knuckles, the hand of someone who'd done violent things. She took it anyway. His grip was firm, warm. He shook once, then released her. "Welcome to your new life, Elena Voss," he said. "Try not to break anything expensive." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "I'll do my best." And somewhere in the city below, Derek Hale woke up with rage in his veins and started making plans. The first 3 days passed in a strange kind of limbo. Elena worked from the apartment, her laptop set up at the dining table that overlooked the city. She designed logos for an organic bakery, updated a website for a yoga studio, and tried not to think about how her entire life had been compressed into 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. Lucien was gone most of the time. He left early, came back late. Sometimes she'd wake in the middle of the night and hear his voice through the walls, speaking in low tones on the phone. She never asked what he was doing. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. But he always checked in, a text around noon asking if she needed anything. Sometimes he'd come home for lunch, sitting across from her at the table while he ate whatever his chef had prepared. The chef was a quiet man named Vincent, who appeared 3 times a week, stocked the kitchen, and disappeared without small talk. It was the 4th night when things started to shift. Elena was working late, trying to finish a social media campaign for a nonprofit client. She'd lost track of time until she heard the front door open. She glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. Lucian entered, looking different than she'd ever seen him. His jacket was gone, his shirt partially unbuttoned. There was blood on his knuckles. Elena stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about." He moved past her toward the kitchen. She followed. "You're bleeding." "Barely." He turned on the faucet and ran cold water over his hands. The blood swirled down the drain, pink and diluted. "Lucien." It's not my blood, Elena. Let it go. The word should have frightened her. Instead, she felt something else. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition. She'd seen violence before, had worn it on her skin. Was it Derek? She asked quietly. Lucian looked at her, water still running over his hands. Derek made a move tonight, tried to hire someone to find you, to convince you to come back to him. Convince? His word, not mine. Lucian shut off the water and reached for a towel. The man he hired works for me. Has for 6 years. So that didn't go the way Derek planned. Elena's pulse kicked up. What did you do? I had a conversation with him about respect, about consequences. Lucien dried his hands carefully. He won't be making that mistake again. You heard him. I educated him. Lucien tossed the towel aside. There's a difference. Elena should have been horrified, should have felt something other than this strange, hollow satisfaction. But all she could think about was Derek's face when he'd grabbed her arm at the gala, the casual cruelty in his eyes. Good, she said. Lucien's eyebrows rose slightly. Good? You think I should feel bad for him after everything he did to me? Elena crossed her arms. I don't. I'm glad he's scared. I'm glad he knows what it feels like. Something shifted in Lucien's expression. He moved closer, studying her face. You're angrier than you let on. I've had practice hiding it. Don't. Not here. His voice was quiet. Anger is honest. Use it. They stood there in the kitchen, the space between them charged with something Elena couldn't name. She was aware of how close he was, how tall, the way he looked at her like he was seeing past all the careful walls she'd built. I should get back to work, she said. It's midnight. I have a deadline. Elena. He said her name like he was trying it out. When's the last time you slept a full night? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. He moved past her, toward the hallway. Come on. Where? You're going to bed. Work can wait. I'm not a child. You can't just order me around. Lucian stopped and looked back at her. You're right, I can't. But I can point out that you've been running on fumes since you got here, and exhaustion makes you sloppy. Sloppy gets you hurt. He was right. She hated that he was right. Elena saved her work and shut her laptop. She followed him down the hallway, but instead of going to her room, Lucian led her to a different door. He opened it to reveal a space she hadn't explored yet. It was a library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls. Leather chairs faced a fireplace. The lighting was warm, soft. I didn't know this was here, Elena said. You didn't ask. Lucian moved to one of the shelves and pulled down a bottle of amber liquid and 2 glasses. Sit. She sat in one of the leather chairs. It was absurdly comfortable. Lucien poured 2 drinks and handed her one. Then he sat across from her, the fireplace between them unlit. Tell me about your parents, he said. The question caught her off guard. Why? Because you mentioned they died. Because I want to know. He took a sip of his drink. You don't have to, but it might help you sleep. Elena looked down at the glass in her hands. The liquor inside was the color of honey. Car accident 2 years ago. Black ice on the highway. My dad lost control. I'm sorry. Everyone says that. Like it helps. She took a drink. It burned less than the whiskey from that first night. They were good people. Better than me, probably. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked construction. They weren't rich, but they were happy. And you were close. Very. Elena felt the familiar ache in her chest. After they died, I had no one. Some distant cousins I barely knew. Friends from college who didn't know what to say. I was alone for the first time in my life. That's when you met Derek. 6 months later. I was working at a coffee shop, trying to get my design business off the ground. He came in every morning, always charming, always interested. He made me feel less alone. Until he didn't. Until he didn't. Elena finished her drink. I kept thinking my parents would have seen through him, would have protected me. But they were gone, and I made my own choices. Lucian was quiet for a moment. Then, my father died when I was 19. Heart attack. I was supposed to take over his business, but I was a stupid kid who thought I knew better. I made mistakes, got people hurt. Took me years to fix what I broke. It was the first personal thing he'd shared. Elena looked up at him. Did you fix it? Most of it. Some things stay broken. He set his glass down. The point is, we all make choices we regret. The trick is learning from them without letting them destroy you. Is that what you did? I'm still learning. He stood. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow's going to be busy. Why? What's tomorrow? You're meeting someone, a friend of mine. She's going to help you. Help me with what? Lucian smiled. It was a sharp expression. Self-defense. If Derek comes at you again, you're going to be ready. The next morning, Elena met Sophia Cruz in the apartment's private gym. She was a woman in her mid-30s, compact and muscled, with dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. Her handshake was crushing. Lucien says you need to learn how to fight, Sophia said without preamble. I don't know if I'd put it that way. I would. You've been a victim long enough. Time to be something else. Sophia moved to the center of the mat. Show me your stance. Elena had no idea what her stance was supposed to be. She stood there awkwardly. Jesus. Sophia shook her head. Okay, we're starting from zero. That's fine. Come here. For the next hour, Sophia put Elena through the basics. How to stand. How to make a proper fist. How to throw a punch without breaking her own thumb. It was exhausting and frustrating, and Elena kept doing it wrong. Again, Sophia said for the 20th time. I can't. You can. You're just afraid of hurting yourself, but pain is information. It tells you what not to do. Sophia demonstrated the movement again. Watch. Hip rotation. That's where the power comes from. Elena tried again. This time the punch felt different, solid. Better. Again. By the time Lucien appeared in the doorway, Elena was drenched in sweat and her arms felt like rubber, but she'd landed a decent hit on the practice pad. How's she doing? Lucien asked. Terrible. But she's trying. Sophia grinned. Give me 2 weeks. I'll have her dangerous. I'm counting on it. Lucien looked at Elena. Shower, then lunch. We have somewhere to be. 20 minutes later, Elena was clean and dressed in clothes that had appeared in her closet. She didn't ask how Lucien knew her size. She was starting to accept that he knew things he shouldn't. They took the elevator down to the parking garage. Lucien's car was a black sedan, expensive but not flashy. The driver was the same man who'd been in the elevator that first night. Elena, this is Marco. He's head of my security. Marco nodded at her in the rearview mirror. Miss Voss? Just Elena is fine. They drove through the city. Elena watched the streets pass. Familiar, but distant. She'd lived in Chicago for 6 years, but this felt like a different version of it. Cleaner, wealthier. The kind of neighborhoods where you didn't check your locks twice. They stopped in front of a building downtown. Glass and steel, modern and imposing. Lucien led her inside through a lobby that looked like an art gallery, into another elevator. Where are we? Elena asked. My office. The elevator opened onto a floor that was all open space and sleek design. People moved efficiently, conversations happening in low tones. Everyone who saw Lucien nodded with respect, some with fear. His actual office was in the corner, windows on 2 sides. The desk was massive. The furniture was minimal. There was no clutter, no personal touches. It looked like a space designed for business, not comfort. A woman was waiting for them. She was younger than Elena, maybe 22, with red hair and sharp green eyes. She stood when they entered. Elena, this is Kat. She's going to be working with you. Kat held out her hand. Nice to meet you. Elena shook it, confused. Working with me on what? Your business. Lucien moved to his desk and pulled out a folder. You're a talented designer, but you're undercharging and taking jobs that waste your time. Kat's going to help you fix that. Elena stared at him. I don't need help with my business. Yes, you do. You're good at the work, but terrible at the business side. That stops now. He handed the folder to Kat. Show her. Kat opened the folder and spread several documents across the desk. Elena recognized them. Her tax returns, her client contracts, her invoices. How did you get these? Elena's voice was tight. You're living in my home, under my protection. That means I know everything about you. Lucien's tone was matter of fact. Your business has potential, but you're charging 1/3 of what you should. You're taking clients who pay late or don't pay at all. And you're working 60-hour weeks for poverty wages. Heat flooded Elena's face. That's none of your business. It is when you're under my roof. I don't protect people who can't protect themselves. He gestured to Kat. She's going to help you build a real client base, set proper rates, create contracts that actually protect you, and in 6 months, you're going to be making real money. I didn't ask for this. No, but you need it. Lucian's voice was firm. You can be angry about it, or you can use it. Your choice. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to throw his charity back in his face, but she looked at the numbers Kat had laid out and felt something crack inside her. He was right. She'd been surviving, not building, accepting whatever scraps clients threw her way because she was too afraid to ask for what she was worth. Fine, she said, but I'm in charge. She advises, I decide. Lucien smiled. Fair enough. Kat spent the next 2 hours walking Elena through a business plan, new pricing structures, target clients, marketing strategies. It was overwhelming, but also exciting in a way Elena hadn't felt in months. When they finished, Lucien took Elena to lunch at a restaurant she'd never afford on her own. They sat by the window, and he ordered for both of them without asking what she wanted. She should have been annoyed, but the food was incredible. Why are you doing this? Elena asked between bites. The self-defense training, the business help, all of it. I told you, you're under my protection. That's not an answer. Lucien was quiet for a moment, studying his wine glass. When I was younger, I watched my mother stay with a man who hurt her. My father. She made excuses, said she loved him, said he'd change. He never did. Elena went still. I was 14 when he broke her arm, 16 when he put her in the hospital. She died when I was 18, cancer, but I always wondered if the stress of living with him made her sick. Lucien's voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. I swore then that I'd never stand by while a man terrorized a woman. Never let it happen if I had the power to stop it. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me what I am. He looked at her directly. Derek reminds me of my father. Same entitled rage, same belief that he owns whatever he wants. I'm going to make sure he learns differently. The intensity in his voice made Elena shiver. What are you planning? Nothing you need to worry about. Stop saying that. This is my life. I deserve to know. Lucien leaned back in his chair. Derek's father has been making inquiries, trying to find out who I am, what I do. He's scared for his son. That's good. Fear makes people careful. Or desperate. Also true. Lucien's smile was cold. But I'm counting on it. They finished lunch and drove back to the apartment. Elena spent the afternoon working through the business plan Kat had created. It was ambitious. Maybe too ambitious. But for the first time in years, she felt like she had a future beyond just surviving the present. That evening, Lucien was home for dinner. Vincent had prepared something Italian, rich, and perfect. They ate in the dining room, an odd kind of domesticity settling between them. Sophia says you're improving, Lucien said. Sophia says I'm terrible, but trying. Same thing in her world. He refilled her wine glass. You'll get there. How do you know? Because you don't quit. You could have left a dozen times by now, gone back to your apartment, taken your chances. But you're still here, because I'm scared. Fear is smart, but it's not what's keeping you here. Lucien's eyes met hers. You want to fight back. You're just learning how. Elena felt something warm spread through her chest. It might have been the wine. It might have been something else. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. That first night, at the gala, why did you kiss me back? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Because you asked for help in a way I couldn't ignore. And because I was curious. About what? About what kind of woman walks up to a stranger and gambles everything on a single move? He stood and carried his plate to the kitchen. You're braver than you think, Elena. Don't forget that. He left her sitting at the table, warmth still spreading through her body, and she realized with a start that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. The next week fell into a pattern. Mornings with Sophia, learning how to move, how to hit, how to use her size as an advantage instead of a liability. Afternoons with Kat, building a business that could actually sustain her. Evenings with Lucien when he was home, talking about everything and nothing. She learned things about him, small things. He drank his coffee black. He hated fish. He read poetry late at night when he couldn't sleep. He had a scar along his ribs from a knife fight when he was 23, and she found herself watching him, the way he moved through space with absolute confidence, the way people responded to him like he was gravity and they were just caught in his pull. The way he looked at her sometimes, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. It was dangerous, this awareness. Elena knew it, but she couldn't seem to stop. 2 weeks after that first night, Derek made his second move. Elena was in the gym with Sophia, working through combinations when Marco appeared in the doorway. His face was grim. "Lucien wants you upstairs. Now." Sophia's expression shifted. "Go, I'll clean up here." Elena's heart hammered as she followed Marco to the apartment. Lucien was standing by the windows, his phone in his hand. He looked furious. "What happened?" Elena asked. "Derek filed a missing persons report. Claims you were kidnapped." Lucien's voice was tight with controlled rage. "The police want to talk to you." "What? That's insane." "It's strategic. He's trying to force you out, make you choose between coming back to him or dealing with a police investigation into me." Lucien turned to face her. "We need to handle this carefully." "I'll just tell them the truth, that I left willingly, that I'm safe." "It's not that simple. If you talk to them, they'll ask where you're staying, who with. That opens doors I'd rather keep closed." Elena felt panic rising. "So what do I do?" "You don't do anything. I'll handle it." "How?" Lucien's smile was sharp and cold. "I'll remind Derek's father that filing false reports is a crime, and that I have resources he doesn't want pointed in his direction." "That sounds like a threat." "It is." He moved closer to her. "Elena, I need to know. Are you ready for this to get ugly? Because it will. Derek's not going to stop, and the more I push back, the more desperate he'll become." She thought about the bruises, the fear, the months of feeling hunted. "I'm ready," she said. "Good." Lucien pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. I need you to contact Richard Hale. Tell him his son is about to create a very expensive problem for everyone involved." He talked for another minute, then hung up. The whole time his eyes stayed on Elena. "This is going to blow back on you," he said when the call ended. "Derek will tell people you're with me, that I'm controlling you. The same things he accused you of will get turned around and aimed at me." "I know." "It doesn't bother you?" Elena met his gaze. "You're not him. People who matter will see the difference." Something shifted in Lucien's expression. He reached out and touched her face, his thumb brushing along her cheekbone where the bruise had finally faded completely. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "What did you expect?" "Someone who needed saving. But you don't need saving. You just needed someone to hold the door open while you saved yourself." His hand was still on her face. Elena's breath caught. The space between them felt electric, charged with possibility. Then Lucien's phone rang. The moment broke. He stepped back and answered. "Yes?" A pause. "Good. Make sure he understands the consequences." He hung up and looked at Elena. "It's handled. Derek's withdrawing the report." "Just like that?" "Just like that. His father is smarter than his son. He knows when to cut his losses." Elena should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt restless, like something was building and she couldn't see what it was yet. That night, she couldn't sleep. She got up around 2 in the morning and found Lucien in the library, reading in one of the leather chairs. He looked up when she entered. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." "Want to talk about it?" Elena sat in the chair across from him. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Derek to do something worse, or for you to decide I'm too much trouble. I don't give up on people I've claimed to protect. Even when it gets complicated? Especially then." He closed his book. "You think this is complicated? You should see some of the situations I've navigated." "Tell me one." Lucien smiled. 3 years ago, a rival organization tried to take over my territory. They kidnapped someone close to me, held him for ransom. They thought I'd negotiate. "Did you?" "No. I burned their operation to the ground, got my man back, made sure everyone knew what happens when you take what's mine." His voice was calm, almost casual. "Complicated is my normal, Elena. You're refreshingly straightforward." I kissed you in front of 300 people. That's not straightforward. It was honest. Desperate, but honest. I respect that more than all the careful games most people play. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elena said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Have you ever been in love?" Lucien's expression shifted. Something guarded came into his eyes. "Once. A long time ago." "What happened?" "She wanted a different life than I could give her. Someone safer, less complicated." He looked at Elena. "She was smart to leave." "Do you regret it?" "I regret that I couldn't be what she needed, but I don't regret who I am." He stood. "You should try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long." But Elena stood too, moving closer. "Why do you keep pushing me away?" "I'm not." "You are. Every time we get close to something real, you pull back. Why?" Lucien's jaw tightened. "Because you don't know what you're asking for." "Then tell me." "Elena." Her name was a warning. "I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. Hurt people, destroyed lives. The only reason I'm helping you is because it serves my interests to keep Derek in line." "I don't believe you." "You should." She was close enough now to feel the heat coming off his body, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders. "You're lying. Maybe not about what you've done, but about why you're helping me." "You think you know me after 2 weeks?" "I think you're not as cold as you pretend to be." Lucian's hand shot out and gripped her wrist. Not hard, just firm enough to make his point. Don't mistake protection for affection. Don't confuse gratitude with attraction. That's how people get hurt. Elena didn't pull away. What if it's not confusion? What if it's just honest? For a moment they stood frozen, his hand on her wrist, her eyes locked with his, the air between them crackling. Then Lucian released her and stepped back. "Go to bed, Elena." "Lucian, please." The word sounded like it cost him something. "Just go." Elena went. But lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, she knew something had changed. The careful distance they'd been maintaining was cracking, and she wasn't sure either of them could stop what came next. The morning came too bright and too early. Elena dragged herself out of bed feeling like she'd barely slept, which wasn't far from the truth. She'd spent most of the night replaying that moment in the library, the way Lucien had looked at her, the tension in his voice when he'd told her to go. She showered and dressed, trying to shake off the restlessness that had settled into her bones. When she emerged from her room, she found Lucian already gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter in his precise handwriting. "Meeting all day. Sophia at 10, Kat at 2. Make yourself useful. L." Elena crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Make herself useful, like she was some project he was managing instead of a person. But when Sophia showed up at 10, Elena channeled all her frustration into the training. She hit harder, moved faster, pushed through the burn in her muscles until Sophia actually looked impressed. "Whatever's got you fired up, keep it," Sophia said, holding the practice pad steady. "This is the best you've looked all week." "I'm just tired of being afraid." "Good. Fear is useful until it isn't. Then it's just baggage." Sophia reset her stance. "Again, and this time don't hold back on the follow-through." Elena threw the combination. Her hip rotated properly, her fist connected with satisfying force. Something in her chest loosened. "That's it," Sophia said. "You're getting it." By the time Kat arrived at 2, Elena was sore and sweaty and felt more centered than she had in days. She showered quickly and met Kat in the dining room, where the younger woman had spread out a laptop and several folders. "Okay," Kat said, pulling up a spreadsheet. "I've compiled a list of potential clients. Companies that match your aesthetic and have the budget to pay what you're worth. I'm thinking we start with targeted outreach. 5 emails a day. Personalized. No generic pitches." Elena looked at the list. Tech startups, design firms, marketing agencies. The kind of clients she'd only dreamed about working with. "This feels like a lot." "It's not. You're good enough for these clients. You just need to believe it." Kat's green eyes were sharp. "Confidence is half the sale. The other half is showing them you understand their needs better than anyone else." They spent the next 3 hours crafting email templates and building a portfolio presentation. Kat was relentless, pushing Elena to highlight her strengths, to stop underselling herself. It was exhausting, but also exhilarating. When Kat finally packed up to leave, she paused at the door. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How long have you and Lucian been together?" Elena blinked. "We're not together. It's not like that." Kat's expression was skeptical. "Right. That's why he personally vetted every piece of advice I've given you. Why he made me run 3 different business models to find the one that would work best for your situation. Why he checks in with me every day to see how you're progressing. He's just thorough. He's invested." Kat shouldered her bag. "I've worked for Lucien for 2 years. I've never seen him pay this much attention to someone. Just thought you should know." She left before Elena could respond. Elena sat at the dining table, staring at the closed door, Kat's words echoing in her head. She wanted to dismiss them, wanted to believe this was all just business for Lucien, protection as transaction. But she kept remembering the way he'd looked at her last night, the way his voice had cracked when he'd said please. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You look good when you're working, focused, like the girl I fell in love with." Elena's blood went cold. She checked the number again. Not Derek's, but the message was unmistakably him. Another text came through. "He can't keep you locked up forever. Eventually you'll have to come out. And when you do, we're going to talk." Her hands were shaking. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she took a screenshot of both messages and forwarded them to Lucian. His response came within seconds. "Don't respond. Don't engage. I'm handling it." Then, a moment later, "Are you okay?" Elena stared at the question. Such a simple thing to ask, but coming from him, it felt weighted with meaning. "I'm fine. Just angry." "Good. Stay angry. I'll be home in an hour." He was home in 40 minutes. Elena heard the door open, heard his footsteps, and then he was there in the dining room doorway, his tie loosened and his expression dark. "Show me your phone." She handed it over. Watched him read the messages, his jaw tightened with each word. "He's using burner numbers, Lucien," and said, "Probably buying cheap phones, texting once and ditching them. So we can't trace it." "We can. It just takes more work." He handed the phone back. "Marco's already on it. We'll find out where he bought the phones, pull security footage, track his movements." That sounds like a lot of effort for some text messages. "It's not about the messages, it's about the pattern. He's escalating, testing boundaries, seeing how close he can get before I respond." Lucian moved to the window, his shoulders tight. "He's getting desperate." "Is that bad?" "Desperate men are unpredictable. They stop calculating risk." He turned to face her. "I need you to stay inside for the next few days. No leaving the apartment without Marco or me." "I've been inside for 3 weeks. I'm going crazy." "I know, but until we figure out Derek's next move, I need you safe." Elena stood, frustration boiling over. "I didn't leave one cage just to live in another. I need air. I need to feel like a person instead of a prisoner." "You're not a prisoner." "Then let me leave." "Elena, please." She hated the pleading note in her voice, but couldn't stop it. "Just for an hour. Anywhere. I don't care where. I just need to be outside these walls." Lucian studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Get your coat." 20 minutes later, they were walking along the lakefront. The wind off Lake Michigan was sharp and cold, but Elena didn't care. She breathed in the autumn air like she'd been drowning and finally found the surface. Marco followed at a discreet distance. Elena could see him in her peripheral vision, always there but trying to be invisible. "Better?" Lucien asked. "Much." She pulled her coat tighter. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me for basic decency." "Apparently I do. Derek never would have let me out if I'd asked." "I'm not Derek." "I know." Elena glanced at him. "That's becoming very clear." They walked in silence for a while. The path was mostly empty, just a few joggers and dog walkers. The city felt distant here, softened by the sound of water and wind. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "You ask me a lot of questions." "You don't have to answer." Lucian's mouth quirked. "What do you want to know?" "The woman you loved, the one who left. Do you still think about her?" He was quiet for so long Elena thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, sometimes, not the way I used to. What changed? I did. She stayed the same. Or maybe I just see her differently now. He paused. She wanted safety, normalcy. I couldn't give her that. She found someone who could. Last I heard, she's married, 2 kids, living in the suburbs. Do you regret losing her? I regret that I hurt her, but I don't regret who I am. Lucian stopped walking and turned to face the lake. Love isn't always enough. Sometimes people need different things, and forcing it just destroys what was good. Elena stood beside him, watching the water. Is that why you keep pushing me away? Because you think I need something different? I know you do. How? You barely know me. I know enough. He looked at her then, his dark eyes serious. You've been hurt. You're recovering. The last thing you need is to get tangled up with someone like me. Someone who lives in a world that would eat you alive. Shouldn't I get to decide that? Not when you're still figuring out who you are without Derek's shadow hanging over you. His voice was gentle but firm. You're confusing safety with attraction, protection with desire. It happens. But it's not real. Elena felt something sharp and hot lodge in her chest. You think you know what I'm feeling better than I do? I think you're vulnerable, and I think I'm convenient. But that's not the same as wanting me for the right reasons. The right reasons, Elena repeated. Like what? Like being completely healed and whole and perfect before I'm allowed to feel anything? Like knowing the difference between gratitude and genuine connection. I know the difference. Do you? Lucian stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, you're a woman who's been terrorized for months, who found someone strong enough to stand between you and your abuser. That creates powerful feelings. But they're not always the feelings you think they are. Elena's hands curled into fists. Don't patronize me. I'm not some confused little girl who doesn't know her own mind. I never said you were. You're treating me like I am. Like I'm too damaged to trust my own feelings. She turned away from the lake, from him. Maybe you're the one who's confused. Maybe you're using my past as an excuse because you're scared. Scared of what? Of actually feeling something for someone. Of letting someone in. She faced him again. You said your mother stayed with a man who hurt her. Maybe you're so afraid of becoming your father that you won't let yourself care about anyone. Lucien's expression went cold. Careful. Why? Because I'm getting too close to something true? Elena knew she should stop, knew she was pushing too hard. But 3 weeks of tension and frustration and unspoken want were pouring out, and she couldn't contain it anymore. You hide behind this idea that you're protecting me, but maybe you're just protecting yourself. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Tell me I'm wrong. You want the truth? Lucien's voice was low and dangerous. Fine. You're right. I am scared. Because I've spent 20 years building walls that keep me functional, that let me do what needs to be done without hesitation. And you... He stopped, took a breath. You make me want to tear those walls down, and that's not something I can afford. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Elena's anger drained away, replaced by something softer. Why not? Because the moment I care about someone more than the organization, I become a liability. People die when I'm distracted, when I'm compromised. He looked at her with something like pain in his eyes. I've seen it happen. Men who put their families before the business. They make mistakes. They hesitate. And they get people killed. So you just don't let yourself feel anything. I feel plenty. I just don't act on it. He turned back to the lake. It's safer that way. For everyone. Elena moved to stand beside him. That sounds like a lonely way to live. It is. But it's necessary. They stood there in silence, the wind cutting through their coats. Marco had moved even farther back, giving them space. Finally, Elena said quietly, I'm not asking you to tear down your walls. I'm just asking you to acknowledge that maybe, possibly, there's something between us that's worth exploring. Not now, not while everything is so complicated. But someday. Lucien looked at her, really looked at her. And if someday never comes? Then at least we're being honest about what this is, instead of pretending it's something it's not. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, tender. You're dangerous, Elena Voss. So are you, Lucien Moretti. His hand lingered against her face. For a moment, Elena thought he might kiss her, thought he might give in to whatever was building between them. Then his phone rang. He pulled back and answered. What? A pause. His expression shifted. When? Another pause. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Elena. We need to go. Now. What happened? Derek made a move, a stupid one, but we need to deal with it immediately. They walked quickly back to where Marco had the car waiting. The drive back to the apartment was tense and silent. Lucien was on his phone, speaking in low, clipped tones. Elena caught fragments. Something about property damage, police reports, lawyers. When they arrived at the apartment building, there were 2 police cars in front. Elena's stomach dropped. Stay calm, Lucien said as they entered the lobby. Let me handle this. 2 officers were waiting by the elevator. One was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. The other was younger, nervous. Mr. Moretti, the older officer said, we need to ask you some questions. Of course, Detective Bryant. What's this about? Derek Hale filed a complaint. Says you've been harassing him, threatening him. He has evidence of property damage to his vehicle. Security footage shows someone matching your description. Lucien's expression didn't change. I haven't been anywhere near Derek Hale or his vehicle. I've been with my legal team all day. I can provide names and timestamps. That's convenient. That's the truth. Detective, I think we both know what's happening here. Mr. Hale is trying to create a narrative because he can't accept that his ex-girlfriend left him. Lucien gestured to Elena. Miss Voss is staying with me voluntarily. She left Derek because he was abusive. I have medical records documenting her injuries. Police reports she filed, a restraining order he violated multiple times. Detective Bryant's eyes shifted to Elena. Is that true, miss? Elena's voice came out steady despite her racing heart. Yes. Derek hurt me. Multiple times. I left him. I'm staying here because I don't feel safe in my own apartment. And Mr. Moretti hasn't coerced you in any way? No. He's helped me, protected me. Everything I'm doing is my choice. The younger officer spoke up. Mr. Holly says you're being held against your will, that Mr. Moretti threatened him. Mr. Hale is lying, Elena said flatly. He's angry that I left him. He's angry that someone finally stood up to him. So he's trying to make Lucien look like the bad guy. Detective Bryant studied her for a long moment. Then he looked back at Lucien. Lucien. We'll need those alibis, names and numbers of everyone who can verify your whereabouts today. You'll have them within the hour. Lucien pulled out his phone and made a call. Daniels, I need you at my building, now. Bring the records from today's meetings. He hung up and turned back to the detective. My attorney will provide everything you need. In the meantime, I'd suggest you look into Derek Hale's history. I think you'll find a pattern of behavior that explains his current desperation. Bryant's mouth tightened. We'll be in touch. The officers left. Lucien waited until they were gone before he let out a breath. That was bold, he said, and stupid. What was? Damaging his own car and trying to frame me for it. Derek's getting sloppy. That's good for us, but dangerous for you. Elena felt cold. Why dangerous for me? Because sloppy people make mistakes, and mistakes get people hurt. He guided her toward the elevator. Come on, we need to talk strategy. Upstairs, Marco was waiting with another man Elena hadn't met. He was older, maybe 60, in an expensive suit. He had the look of someone who spent a lot of time in courtrooms. Elena, this is Richard Daniels, my attorney. Daniels held out his hand. Miss Voss, I've heard a lot about you. Wish I could say the same. He smiled. Lucien keeps his cards close, smart in this business. He turned to Lucien. I brought everything from today. Timestamps, witness statements, security footage from your office building. You were in meetings from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Airtight alibi. Good. Get it to Detective Bryant immediately. And dig into Derek Hale. I want everything. Traffic violations, bar fights, restraining orders from other women, anything that establishes a pattern. Already on it. I have an investigator pulling records now. Daniels pulled out a folder. I also took the liberty of getting a restraining order filed on your behalf, Miss Voss. Against Derek. This one will actually be enforced. How can you guarantee that? Because I know which judges to file with, and because Lucien has the kind of influence that makes people pay attention. Daniels set the folder on the coffee table. Derek violated your previous order 4 times with no consequences. That won't happen again. Elena looked at Lucien. You're making enemies to protect me. I was already his enemy. This just makes it official. Lucien's voice was calm. Daniels, make sure Bryant knows we're cooperating fully. I want this shut down before it becomes a bigger problem. On it. Daniels headed for the door. I'll call you in an hour with updates. When he was gone, Marco said, I've got teams watching Derek's apartment and his office. If he makes a move, we'll know about it. Good. Double the rotation. I want eyes on him 24/7. Marco nodded and left. Elena and Lucien were alone. The apartment felt too quiet after all the activity. This is escalating, Elena said. Yes, because of me. Because of Derek's choices. Not yours. Lucien moved to the bar and poured 2 drinks. He handed one to Elena. He's not going to stop. Not until he's forced to. What does that mean? It means we're going to have to give him a reason to walk away permanently, or remove his ability to keep fighting. You're talking about hurting him. I'm talking about protecting you. Whatever that requires. Lucien's eyes were hard. I told you, I don't give up on people I've claimed to protect. Derek's learning that lesson the hard way. Elena took a long drink. The whiskey burned. I didn't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Then you should have stayed with a man who was slowly killing you. But you didn't. You chose to fight back. That has consequences. He sat down across from her. Derek made his choices. I'm making mine. And you get to live without looking over your shoulder every second. That's the trade. Some trade. But better than the alternative. Lucien leaned back. Elena, I need you to understand something. This ends one of 2 ways. Either Derek backs off completely, or he gets hurt badly enough that he can't come back. There's no middle ground, no peaceful resolution. Men like him don't learn. They only respond to force. How do you know? Because I've dealt with hundreds of men like him. Entitled, violent, convinced they own whatever they want. His voice was flat. They all think they're special, that the rules don't apply to them, and they keep pushing until someone pushes back harder. Elena thought about Derek's face at the gala, the rage barely concealed beneath his polite mask, the texts that kept coming even after he'd been warned off. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. Whatever I have to. Lucien met her eyes. Can you live with that? It was the question she'd been avoiding. Could she accept that violence might be done in her name? That Lucien might hurt Derek? Might do worse than hurt him to keep her safe? She thought about the ER visit after Derek had thrown her against a wall. The bruises that had lasted weeks. The fear that had become her constant companion. Yes, she said. I can live with it. Lucien nodded slowly. Then we move forward. Derek made this choice. He's going to have to live with the consequences. That night, Elena couldn't sleep again. She got up around midnight and wandered into the living room. The city lights stretched out below, beautiful and indifferent. She heard movement behind her and turned to find Lucien standing in the hallway. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled. Can't sleep? He asked. Apparently it's becoming a habit. He crossed to where she stood and looked out at the city. It's going to be okay. You can't promise that. No, but I can make it more likely. He was close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. Elena, about what you said earlier, at the lake. You don't have to. Let me finish. He turned to face her. You were right. I am scared of caring too much, of becoming compromised. But I'm more scared of something happening to you because I held back when I should have gone all in. Elena's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm going to protect you with everything I have, and if that means crossing lines I swore I wouldn't cross, then I'll cross them, because you're worth it. Lucien, he reached out and cupped her face in both hands. You're worth it, he repeated. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce and desperate and everything they'd been holding back for 3 weeks. Elena's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her onto her toes. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he said. "Probably. You're still recovering, still figuring things out." "I know. And I'm still not a good man." "I don't care." Elena pulled back enough to look at him. "I don't need you to be good. I need you to be honest. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Then that's enough." She kissed him again, softer this time. "For now, that's enough." They stood there in the dark apartment, holding each other, and for the first time since that night at the gala, Elena felt something other than fear. She felt alive. They didn't sleep together that night. After the kiss, after the admission, Lucien had pulled back with visible effort and told her they needed to take things slowly. Elena had wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He wasn't rejecting her. He was trying to do the right thing, even when it clearly cost him. So she'd gone to bed alone, her lips still tingling, her heart racing with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The next morning, everything felt different. Lucien was already in the kitchen when she emerged, making coffee. He looked up when she entered, and the heat in his gaze made her stomach flip. "Morning," he said. "Morning." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged. Then Lucien's phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered, his expression shifting to business mode. "What do you have?" A pause. "Send me the footage." He hung up and looked at Elena. "Derek's been busy. He hired a private investigator to follow you. Marco caught him outside the building last night." Elena's brief sense of peace evaporated. What did Marco do? Had a conversation with him. Explained that continuing to work for Derek would be bad for his health. Lucien poured coffee into 2 mugs. The investigator took the hint, gave Marco copies of everything he'd gathered before Derek hired him. What did he have? Photos of you, your schedule before you came here, information about your clients. Lucien handed her a mug. Nothing dangerous, but enough to show Derek's planning something. Like what? That's what we're going to find out. He pulled out his phone and showed her a series of photos. They were surveillance shots. Elena leaving her old apartment, walking to the coffee shop she used to frequent, meeting with clients. The dates went back weeks, too, before the gala. He's been watching me for a long time, Elena said quietly. Stalking you. There's a difference. Lucien put the phone away. But this gives us leverage. Hiring a PI to surveil an ex-girlfriend violates the restraining order. Daniels can use this. Elena set down her coffee mug. Her hands were shaking again. I'm so tired of this. Of him. Of always looking over my shoulder. Lucien moved closer and took her hands in his. I know, but it's almost over. Derek's getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. And when he makes his next one, we'll end this. How can you be so sure? Because I know men like him. They can't help themselves. They always push too far. His thumbs stroked across her knuckles. Trust me. Elena wanted to. But trust had been beaten out of her over months of Derek's manipulation. It didn't come easily anymore. Before she could respond, the apartment door opened. Marco entered with a woman Elena had never seen before. She was in her late 30s, athletic build, with sharp eyes that took in everything at once. This is Agent Sarah Chen, Marco said. FBI. Elena's stomach dropped. FBI? Chen held up a badge. Relax, Miss Voss. You're not in trouble. I'm here because Derek Hale's father has some interesting business associates. Associates we've been investigating for money laundering and tax fraud. Lucien's expression remained neutral. And you're telling us this why? Because Richard Hale has been making inquiries about you, Mr. Moretti, trying to dig up dirt, find leverage. That got our attention. Chen sat down uninvited. See, we've had our eye on the Hale family for 2 years. We know Richard's been cooking his books. We just haven't been able to prove it yet. But if he's desperate enough to go after someone like you, he might make mistakes, get sloppy. You want to use me as bait, Lucien said flatly. I want to offer you protection in exchange for information. Chen leaned forward. You help us build a case against Richard Hale, we make sure Derek stays far away from Miss Voss, permanently. Elena looked between them. What kind of protection? The kind where Derek violates his restraining order and actually faces consequences. where his father's money and connections can't shield him anymore. Chen's voice was matter-of-fact. Right now, you're stuck in this apartment because you're afraid to leave. That's not living. We can change that. In exchange for what? Lucien asked. Lucien, what exactly do you want from me? Information about anyone in your organization who's done business with Richard Hale. Transactions, dates, amounts. Anything that helps us establish a pattern. Lucien laughed. It was a harsh sound. You think I keep records of illegal transactions? You think I'm that stupid? I think you're smart enough to have insurance. Something that protects you if a partner turns. And I think Richard Hale is exactly the kind of partner you'd keep insurance on. Chen pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. This is what we have so far. It's not enough. But with your help, it could be. Lucien didn't touch the folder. And if I refuse? Then Derek keeps coming at Miss Voss. Richard keeps using his connections to make your life difficult. And eventually, someone gets hurt. Chen stood. I'm not asking you to testify. I'm not even asking you to go on record. Just point us in the right direction. Give us enough to get warrants. We'll do the rest. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, this offer expires. Chen handed him a card. Call me when you decide. She left. Marco closed the door behind her and turned to Lucien. What do you think? I think the FBI doesn't make house calls for money laundering cases. They want something bigger. Lucien picked up the folder Chen had left and flipped through it. Richard Hale has been busy. Offshore accounts, shell companies. He's built himself a nice little empire. Is any of it connected to us? Marco asked. Some. Nothing recent. Nothing that can't be explained. Lucien closed the folder. But if Chen's sniffing around, others will be too. We need to be careful. Elena had been quiet through the whole exchange. Now she said, You should help her. Both men looked at her. If it gets Derek away from me permanently, you should do it, Elena continued. I don't care about the risk. I care, Lucien said. Cooperating with the FBI, even indirectly, makes me look weak, like I need their help to handle a problem. That has consequences in my world. What consequences? The kind where people start thinking they can come at me, challenge me. Because if I need federal protection, maybe I'm not as strong as they thought. His voice was hard. In my business, perception is everything. Show weakness once and everyone smells blood. So what? You let Derek keep terrorizing me because you're worried about your reputation? That's not what I said. That's what it sounds like. Elena stood, anger flaring hot in her chest. I'm a liability. I get it. Me being here complicates your life, makes you vulnerable. So maybe I should just leave, go back to my apartment and deal with Derek myself. Elena, no. You talk about protection, about keeping me safe. But the second it might cost you something, you hesitate. She moved toward the hallway. I won't be the reason you compromise your precious organization. Lucien caught her arm. Stop. Just stop. Let go of me. No. He pulled her around to face him. You think I'm hesitating because I care more about my reputation than you? You think that's what this is? What else am I supposed to think? I'm hesitating because cooperating with the FBI puts a target on both our backs. Richard Hale has connections in law enforcement. If word gets out that I'm helping build a case against him, he'll retaliate, and you'll be the first person he comes after. Lucien's grip on her arm was firm, but not painful. I'm trying to figure out how to keep you safe while also not getting you killed. That takes more than 24 hours to plan. Elena's anger drained away. I didn't think about it like that. I know, because you're not thinking like someone in my world. You're thinking like a civilian who just wants the nightmare to end. He released her arm and cupped her face instead. I want that too, but I need to be smart about how we get there. So what do? We use Chen's offer as leverage. Not with the FBI, with Richard Hale. A cold smile crossed Lucien's face. We let him know the feds are sniffing around, that they've approached me, that I'm considering cooperating, and we watch him panic. Marco's eyebrows rose. That's risky. Plus, everything's risky right now. But Richard Hale values his freedom more than his son's pride. If he thinks Derek's obsession is going to bring federal scrutiny down on him, he'll shut Derek down himself. And if he doesn't? Elena asked. Then we go with the FBI and deal with the fallout. Lucien's voice was calm. But I'd rather not burn that bridge unless we have to. He made several calls over the next hour. Elena listened from the couch, trying to piece together what was happening. Lucien spoke in careful language, never saying anything explicit but making his meaning clear. He was reaching out to intermediaries, people who could carry messages to Richard Hale without being traced back to him. When he finally hung up, he looked tired. Now we wait, he said. How long? Not long. Richard's smart. He'll understand the message. Lucien was right. 3 hours later, his phone rang. He listened for a moment, then smiled. Put him through. A pause. Richard, good to hear from you. Another pause. Yes, I'm aware of the situation. Your son has become a problem. His voice was pleasant, almost friendly. I understand you want to handle this internally. That's wise. Family matters should stay in the family. Elena couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Lucien's expression shift from pleasant to cold. Here's what's going to happen, Lucien said. Derek is going to drop all charges. He's going to stop contacting Elena. He's going to disappear from her life completely. In exchange, I'll make sure the federal agents who've been asking questions about your offshore accounts lose interest. Silence on Lucien's end. Then, I'm glad we understand each other. You have until end of business tomorrow. After that, I can't control what the FBI does with the information they already have. He hung up and looked at Elena. It's done. Just like that? Just like that. Richard knows when he's cornered. He'll make Derek back off. What if Derek doesn't listen to his father? He will. Because Richard will make it clear that Derek's obsession is threatening the family fortune. And Richard didn't build his empire by letting anyone, including his son, jeopardize it. Elena wanted to believe him, but Derek had never responded well to being told what to do. You're assuming he'll be rational. I'm assuming his father has more leverage than you did. Money, inheritance, access to the family business. Richard can take all of that away. Lucien sat down beside her. Trust me, this is how it ends. Not with violence, not with the FBI, just with a father choosing his freedom over his son's vendetta. That night, Lucien took Elena to dinner. Not to the apartment's dining room, but to a real restaurant. A small Italian place tucked into a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that didn't take reservations but somehow had a table ready when Lucien walked in. They sat in a corner booth, candlelight flickering between them. It felt almost normal, like they were just two people on a date, not a crime lord and the woman he was protecting from her abusive ex. How did you find this place? Elena asked, looking around at the cozy interior. My mother used to bring me here, before she got sick. Lucien's voice was soft. The owner's son and I grew up together, played baseball in the same league, got into trouble in the same alleys. You played baseball? For a while, until I realized I was better at other things. He smiled. I wasn't very good, too impatient, always swinging for the fences instead of just getting on base. Elena tried to picture a young Lucien, full of impatience and untamed energy. It was hard to reconcile with the controlled man sitting across from her. What changed? She asked. My father died. I had to grow up fast, take over responsibilities I wasn't ready for. He took a sip of wine. Baseball stopped mattering. The food arrived, homemade pasta, simple but perfect. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elena said, Tell me something true, something you've never told anyone else. Lucien looked up, surprised. Why? Because I want to know you, not the version you show the world, the real you. He was quiet for a long time, then, I'm afraid of dying alone, of building this empire and having no one care when I'm gone, of being just another name on a headstone that no one visits. The confession was raw, honest. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. You won't be alone. You can't promise that. Neither can you, but we can choose to believe it anyway. She squeezed his fingers. Now you ask me something. What do you want? Lucien's dark eyes were serious. Not what you think you should want. Not what's practical. What do you actually want from your life? Elena had to think about it. For so long she'd wanted safety, wanted Derek gone, wanted to stop being afraid. But underneath all that, what did she actually want? I want to matter, she said finally. I want to create things that mean something, to help people, to build a life that's mine, not something I fell into or something someone else chose for me. She paused. And I want to be with someone who sees me, all of me, not just the parts that are easy or convenient. That's a tall order. I'm worth it. She said it with more confidence than she felt. Lucien's smile was genuine, warm. Yes, you are. They finished dinner and walked back to the car. The night was cold, but Elena felt warm from the wine and the conversation, and the way Lucien's hand rested on the small of her back. When they got back to the apartment, everything felt different, charged, like something had shifted between them during dinner and neither of them could pretend otherwise. Lucien poured them both a drink. They stood by the windows, looking out at the city. Thank you for tonight, Elena said, for treating me like a person instead of a problem to solve. You've never been a problem. He turned to face her. Complicated, yes, but never a problem. Elena set down her glass and moved closer. Lucienne. Elena. Her name on his lips felt like a warning and an invitation all at once. I know we said we'd take things slow, but I don't want slow anymore. I want you. You're still... I know what I am, and I know what I want. She reached up and touched his face. Stop protecting me from myself. I'm asking for this. Clearly. Deliberately. I want you. Lucien's control cracked. He kissed her hard, backing her against the window. His hands were everywhere, in her hair, on her waist, cupping her face. Elena matched his intensity, pulling him closer, needing to feel all of him. They made it to his bedroom, barely. Clothes came off in a trail from the hallway, and when he finally laid her down on his bed, his eyes were dark with want and something that looked like reverence. You're sure? He asked, one last check. I've never been more sure of anything. That was all the permission he needed. He took his time learning her body, finding what made her gasp and arch and forget everything except the feeling of his hands, his mouth, his weight pressing her into the mattress. It wasn't soft or gentle. It was fierce and desperate and real. And when they finally came together, Elena felt something inside her chest crack wide open. Afterward, they lay tangled in his sheets, breathing hard. Lucien's arm was wrapped around her, holding her close. Elena felt safe in a way she'd never experienced before. Not protected, not sheltered, just seen and wanted and valued. Stay with me, Lucien said quietly. Not just tonight. Really stay. I thought that was already the plan. I mean after Derek's gone, after you don't need protection anymore. Stay anyway. Elena turned to look at him. His face was serious, vulnerable in the dim light. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you not to leave when you don't have to anymore. His hand traced patterns on her bare shoulder. I know it's fast. I know we're doing this backward. But I don't care. I want you here. What if I drive you crazy? What if we're terrible at living together? Then we'll figure it out. But I'd rather try and fail than watch you walk away because you think it's the practical thing to do. Elena kissed him, soft and slow. Okay. Okay? I'll stay. We'll try. We'll probably drive each other crazy, but we'll try. Lucien pulled her closer, and Elena felt his body relax, like he'd been holding tension she hadn't noticed until it released. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and Elena didn't dream about Derek at all. The next morning, everything went to hell. Elena woke to shouting. Lucien was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. Through the bedroom door, she could hear Marco's voice, urgent and sharp. What's happening? Elena asked, sitting up. Stay here. Lucien's voice was hard. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. He left before she could argue. Elena grabbed a robe and moved to the door, listening. How many? That was Lucien. 4. Maybe 5. They're armed. Marco's voice. Building security is trying to lock down the elevators, but one team already made it past the lobby. Derek? Front and center. He's lost it, Lucien. Completely lost it. Elena's blood went cold. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Lucien spun around, anger flashing across his face. I told you to stay in the bedroom. Derek's here. In the building. I'm not hiding while... The apartment door exploded inward, wood splintered, men in tactical gear poured through. Elena screamed. Lucien shoved her behind him, reaching for something at his back. A gun appeared in his hand. "Get down!" he shouted. Everything happened too fast. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed space. Marco returned fire from behind the kitchen counter. One of the tactical team went down. Then another. Through the chaos, Elena saw Derek. He wasn't in gear like the others. He was in a suit, hair disheveled, eyes wild. He was pointing at her, shouting something she couldn't hear over the gunfire. Lucien fired twice. Both shots hit center mass. 2 more men dropped, but there were more coming. The hallway beyond the shattered door was full of movement. Derek had brought an army. "We need to move," Marco shouted. "The safe room!" Lucien grabbed Elena's arm and pulled her down the hallway. Behind them, more gunfire, the sound of men shouting, breaking glass. They reached a door Elena had never noticed before. Lucien pressed his palm to a panel and the door swung open, revealing a reinforced room with concrete walls and no windows. A panic room. He shoved Elena inside. "Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone but me." "No, I'm not leaving you out there." "Elena, I'm not losing you." Her voice broke. "Please don't ask me to hide while you get killed protecting me." Lucien's expression shifted. For a moment she saw past all his walls, saw the fear and the love and the desperate need to keep her safe. Then he kissed her, hard and fast. "I love you. Remember that." He slammed the door shut. Elena heard the locks engage. She was trapped inside the safe room, alone, while gunfire echoed through the apartment. She pounded on the door, screaming Lucien's name, but the walls were too thick. The door was designed to withstand anything. All she could do was wait, and pray that when the door opened again, Lucien would be the one standing on the other side. Minutes passed like hours. The gunfire stopped. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. Elena pressed her ear against the door, trying to hear anything. Then a voice. Derek's voice. Muffled but audible. "Where is she? Where's Elena?" A pause. Then Lucien's voice. Strained. "Gone. I sent her away." "Liar! She's here. I know she's here." Derek sounded unhinged. "Tell me where she is, or I start putting bullets in your knees." "Do what you need to do. You're not getting her." Elena's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She looked around the safe room desperately. There had to be another way out. A phone. Something. She found a panel on the wall. Emergency communications. She pulled it open and found a phone handset. She grabbed it and dialed the only number she could think of. Agent Chen answered on the second ring. "Chen. This is Elena Voss. Derek Hale is in Lucien Moretti's apartment. He has armed men. They're shooting. Lucien's hurt. We need help. Now." "Where are you?" "Sinclair Hotel, 13th floor, private apartment. Please hurry." "Stay on the line. Help is coming." Elena heard more shouting through the walls, then a single gunshot. She screamed into the phone. "Hurry, please." 2 minutes out. Stay where you are. Do not open the door. Elena sank to the floor, phone pressed to her ear, and waited for the sound of sirens. The sirens came exactly when Agent Chen had promised. Elena heard them through the thick walls, distant but growing closer. Then came the sound of boots pounding upstairs, shouted commands, the unmistakable authority of law enforcement flooding the building. Derek's voice cut through the chaos, high and panicked. "You don't understand. She's mine. She belongs to me. Drop your weapon. Drop it now." More shouting, a scuffle. Then silence. Elena stayed on the floor, phone still pressed to her ear, Chen's voice a steady anchor. "Elena, can you hear what's happening?" "They're here. The police are here." "Good. Stay in the safe room. Don't come out until an officer identifies themselves and gives you the all clear. Do you understand?" "What about Lucien? Is he—" Her voice broke. "I heard a gunshot." "We don't have that information yet, but help is there. They'll secure the scene and get medical attention to anyone who needs it." The wait was agony. Elena counted her heartbeats, trying to stay calm, trying not to imagine Lucien bleeding out on the floor of his own apartment while she hid behind reinforced walls. Finally, a knock on the safe room door. "Miss Voss? This is Officer Ramirez with Chicago PD. You're safe to come out now." Elena scrambled to her feet. "Lucien Moretti, where is he?" Ma'am, I need you to open the door first. Her hand shook as she worked the lock mechanism. The door swung open, and she found herself face to face with a young officer in tactical gear. Behind him, the apartment was destroyed. Bullet holes in the walls, shattered glass everywhere. Blood on the marble floor. Where is he? Elena pushed past the officer. Ma'am, you need to stay back. This is an active crime scene. But Elena was already running through the apartment. She found Marco first, sitting against the kitchen counter with a paramedic wrapping his shoulder. He was pale but conscious. Where's Lucien? She demanded. Marco's eyes moved to the hallway. Bedroom. He's alive, Elena. He's alive. She ran. The bedroom door was open, more paramedics inside. And there, sitting on the edge of the bed with his shirt off and blood streaked across his ribs, was Lucien. Their eyes met. Relief crashed through Elena so hard her knees almost buckled. You're okay, she breathed. Mostly. His voice was strained. He gestured to his left side where a paramedic was applying pressure to a wound. Derek got one shot off before the FBI arrived. Grazed my ribs. Hurts like hell, but nothing vital. Elena crossed to him and took his face in her hands, needing to touch him, to confirm he was real and breathing. You told me you loved me and then locked me in a room. Best way to keep you safe. I thought you were dead. I thought, her voice cracked. Don't ever do that to me again. Can't promise that. Comes with the territory. But his hand came up to cover hers, holding it against his face. I'm sorry you had to hear it like that. In the middle of chaos, you deserved better. I don't care how I heard it. I just care that you meant it. I meant it. His dark eyes were serious despite the pain tightening his features. I love you, Elena. That's not changing. The paramedic clearing his throat interrupted them. Sir, I need to finish bandaging this, and you really should go to the hospital for proper treatment. Not happening. Patch me up here. Mr. Moretti, here, or don't, your choice. The paramedic sighed but continued working. Elena moved to sit beside Lucien, careful not to jostle him. What happened out there after you locked me in? Derek brought hired muscle, ex-military types, 4 of them plus Derek. Lucien winced as the paramedic tightened a bandage. They came in hard and fast. Took out 2 before they realized we were actually shooting back. The other 2 got smart and took cover. And Derek? Panicked, started screaming about you, waving his gun around like an amateur. I was trying to talk him down when the FBI arrived. He took a shot at me out of pure rage. Missed everything important, thank God. Then the feds swarmed the place and it was over. Elena thought about Derek's voice through the wall, the unhinged quality to it. Where is he now? Federal custody. Chen arrested him personally, him and all 4 of his hired guns. Lucien's smile was cold. Turns out hiring a private military team to assault someone's home is several kinds of federal crime. Derek's going away for a long time. And his father? Richard Hale is probably having the worst day of his life right now. His son just committed federal crimes that are going to bring intense scrutiny to the entire Hale family business. The FBI will tear through their finances looking for connections to the men Derek hired. Lucien's expression was satisfied despite the pain. Richard tried to control his son. He failed. Now they both pay the price. Agent Chen appeared in the doorway. She looked tired, but grimly pleased. Mr. Moretti, Miss Voss, glad you're both alive. Thanks for the timely arrival, Lucien said. Thank Miss Voss. Her call gave us probable cause to enter without a warrant. Very helpful. Chen's eyes moved to Elena. Smart thinking. You probably saved his life. Elena's throat tightened. I just didn't want to lose him. Well, you didn't, and now we have Derek Hale on multiple federal charges, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, conspiracy, illegal possession of military-grade weapons, violation of a restraining order. He's looking at 20 years minimum. Good, Elena said flatly. He deserves worse. Chen's expression softened. I know this has been traumatic, but it's over now. Derek can't hurt you anymore. His father can't protect him anymore. You're free. The word hung in the air. Free. Elena turned it over in her mind, testing it. For months she'd been trapped, first by Derek's control, then by fear, then by the need for Lucien's protection. The idea that she could actually be free felt foreign. What about Lucien? Elena asked. You said you wanted his cooperation against Richard Hale. Is that still on the table? That depends on Mr. Moretti. Chen looked at him. We have Derek dead to rights, but Richard Hale is still out there, still running his dirty empire. If you're willing to share information about his business dealings, we can take him down too. Make sure he never has the resources to come after either of you again. Lucien was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he said, I'll give you what I have, but I want immunity, full immunity for anything that comes out during the investigation. I can arrange that, as long as you're not directly involved in the crimes we're investigating. I'm not. Richard and I had some peripheral business overlap years ago. Nothing recent, nothing illegal on my end. Lucien's voice was steady. But I know where he keeps his real records, the ones his accountants don't see. Chen's eyes sharpened. Where? A storage unit in Gary, Indiana, under his wife's maiden name. Everything's in there. Ledgers, bank statements, contracts. He kept it all because he's paranoid and stupid. Lucien rattled off an address from memory. You'll need a warrant, but the evidence inside will more than justify it. How do you know about this? Because I make it my business to have insurance on everyone I work with. Richard Hale might have money and connections, but I have information. And right now I'm choosing to share it. Lucien's smile was sharp. Consider it my contribution to cleaning up Chicago's business community. Chen pulled out her phone and started making calls. She stepped into the hallway, her voice low and urgent. The paramedic finished bandaging Lucien's ribs and stood. You're all set, but seriously, if you develop a fever or the pain gets worse, go to the ER. Noted. When the paramedic left, Elena and Lucien were alone for the first time since the attack. The apartment beyond the bedroom was full of police and federal agents processing the scene. But in here, it was just the two of them. You gave up your leverage, Elena said quietly. Your insurance on Richard Hale. Why? Because keeping you safe is more important than keeping leverage on a man I barely do business with anymore. Lucien reached for her hand. And because you were right, at the lake, I was using protection as an excuse to keep distance between us. But I don't want distance anymore. Even though it's complicated? Even though I come with all this baggage? Everyone comes with baggage. Yours just happened to be violent and deranged. He pulled her closer, careful of his injured ribs. I've spent 20 years keeping people at arm's length, convincing myself it was safer that way. But safe is just another word for alone, and I'm tired of being alone. Elena kissed him, soft and careful, mindful of his injuries. I love you too. In case that wasn't clear from the part where I called the FBI to save your life. It was pretty clear. His hand moved to the back of her neck, that gesture she'd come to recognize as his, possessive but gentle. So what happens now, when all this is over and you don't need protection anymore? I stay anyway, like you asked. We try this thing for real. It won't be easy. My life is complicated. So is mine. We'll figure it out. Elena settled against his good side, careful not to hurt him. Besides, I've gotten used to the view from this apartment. Be ashamed to give it up. Lucien laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh. Hurts. They sat like that for a while, listening to the activity in the rest of the apartment. Eventually, Chen came back. We got the warrant, she said. Team's heading to Gary now, and I've drafted immunity paperwork for you, Mr. Moretti. Have your attorney review it, but it's standard. I'll have Daniels look at it tonight. Good. Chen paused. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Richard Hale has hurt a lot of people over the years. This will finally stop him. After Chen left, more police came and went. They took statements from Elena, from Lucien, from Marco. They photographed everything, collected evidence. By the time they finally cleared out, it was late afternoon. The apartment was a disaster, but the building maintenance team was already boarding up the shattered front door. Cleaning crews would come tomorrow. Vincent had already called to say he'd have meals delivered since the kitchen was temporarily unusable. Lucien's organization moved with quiet efficiency. People arrived to remove the broken furniture, to patch bullet holes, to erase the evidence of violence. Within hours, it looked less like a war zone and more like a construction site. Elena and Lucien relocated to a hotel suite for the night while the apartment was made livable again. Marco came with them, his shoulder properly treated at a hospital despite his protests. They ordered room service and ate in exhausted silence. Later, lying in the hotel bed with Lucien beside her, his ribs bandaged, painkillers making him drowsy, Elena felt the adrenaline finally drain away. The fear, the panic, everything that had been keeping her running for months. "It's really over," she said quietly. "Yeah." Lucien's voice was heavy with approaching sleep. "Derek's going to prison. Richard's empire is collapsing. You're safe." "We're safe," Elena corrected. "Both of us." His arm tightened around her. "Both of us." She fell asleep to the sound of his breathing, steady and alive, and felt something like peace settle into her bones for the first time since her parents had died. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings and media coverage. Derek's arrest made the news. The raid on Richard Hale's storage unit made bigger news. The evidence inside was exactly what Lucien had promised. Years of financial crimes laid out in meticulous detail. Richard Hale was arrested. His company's stock plummeted. Associates scrambled to distance themselves. And through it all, Lucien kept his immunity agreement and his distance from the spotlight. Elena watched it unfold from the safety of the apartment, which had been fully restored. Better than before, actually. Bulletproof glass in the windows now. Enhanced security measures. But it was still home. Sophia continued the self-defense training. Kat continued the business coaching. Elena's client list was growing. She'd landed 3 major contracts in the past week alone, all of them paying exactly what she was worth. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after the attack, Elena was working at the dining table when Lucien came home early. He looked different, lighter, somehow. "What happened?" she asked. "Richard Hale took a plea deal, 15 years federal prison. No possibility of parole." Lucien sat down across from her. "It's done. The whole thing is done." "And Derek?" "Still awaiting trial, but his attorney is recommending he take whatever deal the prosecution offers. The evidence is overwhelming." Lucien reached across the table and took her hand. "He's never getting out, Elena. Even with good behavior, he's looking at minimum 18 years. By the time he's free, you'll have built an entire life he has no part of." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Not from sadness, from relief so profound it felt like grief for everything she'd lost along the way. "Hey," Lucien said softly. "You okay?" "I'm free," she whispered. "Actually, really free. I can go anywhere, do anything. I don't have to look over my shoulder. I don't have to be afraid." "No, you don't." She stood and moved around the table, climbing into his lap carefully. His ribs were mostly healed, but still tender. "Thank you. For everything. For protecting me when no one else would. For believing me. For loving me." "You don't need to thank me for that." His hand settled on her waist. "Loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done." They kissed, slow and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, Elena said, "I want to do something." "What?" "I want to start a foundation for women leaving abusive relationships. Help them find housing, legal representation, counseling. All the things I didn't have when I left Derek." Lucien's expression shifted. Something like pride flickered in his dark eyes. "That's a hell of an idea. I've been thinking about it for weeks. All those women who don't have someone like you to protect them, who don't have resources or connections or any way out. I want to help them." "Then we'll do it." Lucien's voice was firm. "I'll provide the initial funding. You run it however you want. Make it what you wish had existed for you." "You do that?" "I told you. I'm moving my organization toward legitimate business. A charitable foundation is exactly the kind of thing that helps that transition." He smiled. "Plus, it's a good cause. And it matters to you." That's reason enough. Elena felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. "I love you." "I know." He kissed her again. "I love you too. Now tell me about this foundation. What are you going to call it?" They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Elena sketched out ideas while Lucien made calls to attorneys and accountants. By evening, they had the bones of something real. A foundation that would provide emergency housing, legal aid, and job training for women escaping domestic violence. It would take months to get it properly established. But Elena had time now. She had safety. She had resources. She had Lucien's support and her own growing confidence. She had a future that was entirely hers to build. 2 months later, Elena stood in front of a small office space in downtown Chicago. The sign above the door read Voss Foundation in clean, simple letters. The design was hers, the mission was hers, the hope it represented was hers. Lucien stood beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back. Marco was there too, along with Sophia and Kat. They'd all become something like family over the past months. People who showed up, who cared, who fought for each other. "Ready?" Lucien asked. Elena nodded. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space was small but bright. Desks already set up, phones ready to ring. In the corner, a comfortable seating area where women could come and feel safe while they figured out their next steps. It wasn't much yet, but it was a beginning. "I got the first call this morning," Elena said. "A woman named Sarah. Her boyfriend put her in the hospital last week. She left him but has nowhere to go. Her family won't help. She's terrified." "What did you tell her?" Lucien asked. "That she could come here, that we'd find her safe housing by tonight, that she wasn't alone anymore." Elena turned to face him. "We're setting her up in a secure apartment. Full security. Legal consultation tomorrow. Job placement assistance starting next week." "Good." Lucien pulled her close. "You're going to change lives here, Elena. You know that, right? We're going to change lives. This is both of us." "No, this is you. I'm just providing resources. You're providing hope. That's worth more than money." They stayed in the office for a few more hours, making sure everything was ready. Then they went home to the apartment that had become theirs. Not just Lucien's, theirs. That night, lying in bed with the city lights streaming through the windows, Elena thought about the path that had brought her here. The violence, the fear, the desperate kiss at a gala that had changed everything. She'd walked up to a stranger and gambled her life on a moment of reckless courage. And somehow, impossibly, it had led her here. To safety, to purpose, to love that felt solid and real and nothing like the twisted thing Derek had called love. "What are you thinking about?" Lucien asked, his voice sleepy. "How nothing turned out the way I expected. Is that good or bad?" "Good, definitely good." She turned to face him. "I thought you were going to save me. That night at the gala, I thought I needed someone strong enough to stand between me and Derek. And I did need that. But what I needed more was someone who believed I could save myself, who just held the door open and gave me room to become who I was supposed to be." Lucien's hand moved to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "You did the hard work, Elena. All of it. I just made sure you had the space to do it safely. We saved each other, you from being alone, me from being afraid. That's fair. More than fair." He kissed her forehead. "You know what the funny thing is? I spent 20 years convinced that caring about someone would make me weak, would compromise everything I'd built. But loving you made me stronger, made me better, made me actually want to be better." Elena's eyes burned with tears. Happy ones this time. "So what happens now? We just live happily ever after?" "I don't know about happily ever after. That sounds boring." Lucien smiled. "But we build something real. Together, we help people who need it. We love each other even when it's hard. And we don't waste time pretending we're anything other than what we are." Which is? Two broken people who found each other at exactly the right time. Who chose to be brave instead of safe. Who built something good out of something violent. His voice was soft. "We're not a fairy tale, Elena. We're better than that. We're real." She kissed him then, long and deep and full of everything she couldn't find words for. When they broke apart, she said, "I want you to know something. That night at the gala, when I walked up to you, I wasn't thinking about love or forever or any of this. I was just trying to survive." "I know. But now I choose you. Not because I'm afraid, not because I need protection, but because you're the person I want beside me when I'm building the life I was supposed to have." Lucien's expression cracked open, vulnerable and raw and beautiful. "That's all I've ever wanted. To be chosen, not needed, chosen." "Then you're chosen, every day, for as long as you'll have me." "That's going to be a very long time." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two people who'd found safety in each other's arms and decided to make it permanent. 3 months later, Elena sat in the foundation's office, reviewing applications for their emergency housing program. They'd helped 14 women so far. Sarah had gotten a job at a marketing firm and moved into her own apartment. Another woman, Maria, had escaped with her 2 kids and was now enrolled in a nursing program. The foundation was growing, making a difference. Elena hired 2 full-time staff members and was in talks with the city about expanding their services. Lucien had been true to his word. He'd shifted more of his business interests into legitimate enterprises, security consulting, real estate development. He still had connections to his old world, but they were fading. The man who'd built an empire on violence was slowly, carefully building something better. They got engaged on a random Tuesday in April. No grand gesture. Just Lucien coming home from a meeting, finding Elena at the dining table surrounded by paperwork, and saying, "Marry me." Elena looked up, surprised. "What?" "Marry me. Make it official. Build this life together permanently." He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple, elegant. Exactly her taste. "I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to pretend this is anything other than forever." Elena's heart was hammering. "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "It's the only one you're getting." She laughed, stood, crossed to him and took the ring from his hand. "Yes. Obviously, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Lucien didn't do anything without being thorough. They got married 2 months later. Small ceremony. Just close friends and the people who mattered. Sophia was there. Kat, Marco. Vincent the chef made the cake. Agent Chen even showed up, off-duty and smiling. Elena wore a dress she designed herself. Simple and elegant. Lucien wore a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. They exchanged vows in the apartment where everything had started, where Elena had first felt safe, where they'd first admitted they loved each other. The vows were private, no traditional promises, just honest words about choosing each other, about building something that would last, about refusing to let fear or violence or the past define their future. When Lucien kissed her at the end, Elena felt the final piece of her old life fall away. She wasn't the scared woman who'd walked up to a stranger at a gala anymore. She was someone new, someone stronger, someone who'd learned that love didn't have to hurt, that protection could come without control, that the right person would make you braver instead of smaller. A year after the attack, Elena got a letter. It was from Derek, forwarded through multiple legal channels to ensure he didn't have her actual address. She almost threw it away without reading it, but Lucien was there, and he said, "Your choice, but sometimes closure comes from unexpected places." Elena opened it. The letter was long, rambling in places. Derek talked about therapy, about realizing he'd been sick, about understanding, finally, what he'd done to her. He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't make excuses. He just acknowledged the damage and said he hoped she'd found peace. At the end, he wrote, "You deserve to be happy. I know I never gave you that. I hope whoever did knows how lucky they are." Elena read it twice. Then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. She didn't respond, didn't owe Derek anything, not even acknowledgement of his apology. But she kept the letter, not because she forgave him, not because it changed anything, but because it was proof that even the worst people could sometimes find clarity, that violence could be recognized and named, that accountability, however late, still mattered. "You okay?" Lucien asked. "Yeah." Elena closed the drawer. "I'm okay. He's just a part of my past now, not my present, not my future." "Good, because your future is waiting." He gestured to the living room where Elena had set up a makeshift office for foundation work. "You have 3 interviews this afternoon for the director of outreach position. And tonight we're having dinner with the mayor to discuss expanding the foundation's city funding." Elena smiled. Her life was full now. Not perfect. They still fought sometimes, still had to navigate the complications of Lucien's business and her foundation and the fact that they came from completely different worlds. But it worked. They worked. 18 months after the gala, Elena found out she was pregnant. She took the test in the apartment bathroom, hands shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer enormity of it. She was going to be a mother. She and Lucien were going to have a child. When she told him, Lucien went very still. Then he pulled her close, and held her like she might disappear. "Are you scared?" she asked. Terrified, but in a good way. His hand moved to her stomach, still flat but carrying their future. "I'm going to be a father. I'm going to have a chance to do this right, to be nothing like my own father. You already are nothing like him. I want to be better, for you, for this baby, for the life we're building." He kissed her. "I love you, both of you." The pregnancy was normal, healthy. Elena worked through most of it, only slowing down in the final months when her body demanded rest. The foundation was thriving. They'd helped over 100 women by the time Elena went on maternity leave. They'd opened a second office. They were making real, measurable differences. Their son was born on a cold January morning. Labor was long and painful, and nothing like the gentle experience people promised. But when Lucien placed their baby in Elena's arms, everything else fell away. They named him Marcus, after Marco, who'd taken a bullet protecting them, who'd become family without ever asking for anything in return. Fatherhood changed Lucien in ways Elena couldn't have predicted. He was softer, more open. He'd hold Marcus for hours, just watching him sleep, like he couldn't believe something so perfect could exist. "I never thought I'd have this," Lucien said one night, rocking Marcus while Elena tried to rest. "A family, a real one, built on love instead of obligation or fear." "You have it now." Elena's voice was drowsy. "We both do." Marcus grew, healthy and loved and safe, in ways his parents had never been. Elena went back to work part-time, running the foundation from home when she could. Lucien continued shifting his business toward legitimacy. They bought a house outside the city, something with a yard, room to grow. The apartment in the Sinclair Hotel became their city place, somewhere to stay when work demanded it. But home was the house with the yard and the nursery painted soft blue and the family photos on the walls. Life wasn't perfect. Marcus had colic for the first 3 months and no one slept. Lucien still had to deal with people from his old life who didn't want to let go. Elena struggled sometimes with postpartum anxiety, her old fears resurfacing in new forms. But they handled it together, with honesty, with support, with the kind of love that was built on choosing each other every single day, not just once. 5 years after the gala, Elena stood in the foundation's main office and looked around at what they'd built. 5 locations across Chicago now. Over 500 women helped, a staff of 32 dedicated people who believed in the mission. Sarah, the first woman the foundation had helped, was now their director of client services. She'd rebuilt her life completely, was engaged to a man who treated her with genuine respect. She'd become Elena's friend, her reminder that recovery was possible. "Big day tomorrow," Sarah said, appearing at Elena's shoulder. "You ready?" Tomorrow was the Foundation's 5-year anniversary gala, a fundraiser to expand services to 2 more cities. Elena had been planning it for months. "As ready as I'll ever be," Elena said. "Weird to think the last gala I went to, I was running from Derek. Now I'm hosting one to help other women run from their own versions of him. You've come a long way." "We all have." Elena turned to face Sarah. "That's what I want tomorrow night to be about. Not me, not my story, but all the women who've walked through these doors and chosen to rebuild. They're the real heroes." The gala was held at the Sinclair Hotel, full circle. Elena wore a dress she'd designed herself, confident and elegant. Lucien was at her side in a perfect suit, Marcus at home with a trusted sitter. The ballroom was full. Donors, supporters, women the foundation had helped, dressed up and proud and alive. Elena gave a speech about the mission, about hope, about the fact that leaving was just the first step, and healing was a journey that looked different for everyone. She talked about courage, about how sometimes it looked like walking across a ballroom and kissing a stranger. Sometimes it looked like calling a helpline. Sometimes it looked like getting out of bed on the days when fear made that feel impossible. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Elena looked out at all those faces and felt something profound. Not pride exactly, more like gratitude that she'd survived long enough to build this, to help others survive. Lucien found her after the speech. "That was beautiful. It was true." She leaned into him. "5 years ago, I was terrified and desperate. Now I'm standing here helping other women find their way out. Life is strange. Life is good, Lucian corrected. Strange, but good. They danced, slowly, with his arms wrapped around her and her head on his shoulder. The music was soft. The lighting was gentle. Everything felt right in a way Elena had stopped believing was possible. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For catching me when I fell. For loving me when I didn't think I deserved it. For building this life with me. Lucian pulled back enough to look at her. You saved yourself, Elena. I just made sure you had room to do it. We saved each other. That's the truth. He kissed her. Right there on the dance floor, in front of everyone who mattered. It was nothing like that first desperate kiss at a different gala in the same building. That kiss had been about survival. This one was about love, about choice, about everything they'd built together from the ashes of violence and fear. When they broke apart, Lucian said, I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a necklace, a simple pendant engraved with a date. The night of the gala, where everything had started. So we never forget where we came from, he said, and how far we've traveled. Elena's eyes burned with tears. Happy ones. Always happy ones now. It's perfect. He fastened it around her neck, and Elena felt the weight of it settle against her skin. A reminder. A promise. A piece of their story made permanent. They left the gala early, unable to stay away from Marcus any longer. Drove home to their house in the suburbs, paid the sitter, stood together in the nursery doorway watching their son sleep. We did good, Lucienne whispered. Yeah, we did. Marcus stirred, sensing their presence. His eyes opened and he smiled that gummy baby smile that made everything worth it. Elena picked him up, held him close, and felt the last piece of her old fear finally release its grip. She'd spent so long being afraid. Afraid of Derek, afraid of being alone, afraid she'd never escape the cycle of violence that had trapped her. But fear had a limit. And love, real love, was stronger. She looked at Lucienne, holding their son, standing in the home they'd built together. This was what safety looked like. Not walls or guards or locked doors, just people choosing each other, choosing kindness over cruelty, choosing to build instead of destroy. I love you, she said. I love you too. Lucian kissed the top of Marcus's head. Both of you. Forever. And Elena believed him. Because forever wasn't a promise anymore. It was a choice they made every single day. To show up. To be honest. To love each other through the hard parts and the beautiful parts and everything in between. The past would always be there. Derek's violence, the fear, the desperate kiss that had changed everything. But it didn't define them anymore. What defined them now was this. A family built from chaos, a love forged in fire, a life that proved violence didn't have to win, that people could heal. That hope was real, even when it felt impossible. Elena Voss had walked into a gala looking for an escape and found a future instead. Had kissed a dangerous man out of desperation and discovered he was exactly what she needed. Not a hero, not a savior,